Hello again and welcome. Remember I told you we will start by making the bases. Today we will make base number 1. Base number 1 is going to be called the tomato sauce base. The tomato sauce base is going to be the base that we'll use for several tomato sauce dishes. In Africa, or Cameroon in particular, most of our stews are tomato based. No matter what else we put in the stews, it is going to have some kind of tomato. Now, tomatoes by themselves are very acidic. Therefore, we believe in cooking the tomato for long and cook it very well because reason number 1, when you cook your tomato for long, it takes away the acidity from the tomato. Secondly, tomatoes, from their red color, you know they are packed full of carotenoids, which are antioxidants that fight all the radicals that harm your cells. So the lycopene that you get from tomato would be better absorbed in your body if the tomato is properly cooked. So for those reasons, we are going to make sure we cook our tomato very well so that we get the benefits, not only from the taste, but the health benefits from using tomato in our stews. Secondly, we need something that gives flavor. And there's nothing that gives you more flavor than onions and garlic. Garlic and onions, the allium family, they are highly medicinal, but they also give you sweetness to your stews. So we're going to add some onions and some garlic to the tomatoes that we'll cook. We'll also use the red bell peppers. Red bell peppers, just like your tomatoes, they also have carotenoids, antioxidants that are very helpful for your body. And not only that, because they call them sweet peppers, they give us sweetness to our stews as well. So our tomato-based sauce will be made from tomatoes. So you have your tomatoes here. These tomatoes are canned tomatoes. These are whole canned tomatoes. I like the whole canned tomatoes because they are already pre-cooked before they are canned. So there's nothing wrong with them. But if you don't believe in using canned tomatoes, feel free to use fresh tomatoes. But the only thing I would say is if you use fresh tomatoes, open them up, de-seed the tomatoes, because the seeds in your tomato have what is called lectin, which is not good for your gut. So if you're using fresh tomatoes, cut them, take the seeds out, chop them up, and then just follow the process like I would do here. This is tomato paste. Tomato paste is concentrated tomato, and it also adds sweetness to your stew. So that's why we do the combination. So you realize that everything we have here is either going to give us some kind of sweetness or will give us some flavor or some very good taste. So we will do this base, and take note, this is base number 1, as we'll reference them as we move on. Base number 1, or tomato sauce base, that we'll be using for many dishes as we move along. It is so easy to make. The key is cook the tomatoes for long. There's nothing extra to do when you're doing your base. So the first thing is, so that we get the flavor up, is to blend the garlic and the onions and put them in the hot oil to get that flavor up before we add the tomatoes and then cook them. So we start by blending the tomatoes and the onions. And also, we would use some water to grind these. Don't worry about the amount of water that you use. I'll show you what to do. This might look like a lot of water, but we have a solution for that. We will blend blender. Okay, good. Now, there is a lot of water in here, so all you need to do is sieve. And don't worry about it. We're not going to throw away the water. We would use that later on, and you'll see why. Now you put some oil. I'm going to have the recipe for making this sauce. So for now, just follow the steps. Heat up the oil for maybe for a minute. And the key is so that it wakens up the flavor in the tomatoes and in the onions and the garlic. The reason why I sieve is because you put in the onions and the garlic in the oil with the water. The water will cool down the oil, and that's something you don't want. You want the oil to stay hot so the onions and the garlic, they start cooking. So that's why I sieve to reduce the amount of water that I'm adding into the oil. But I don't get rid of this because I'm going to use it to blend the rest of my vegetables. So I'll use the same stock that I left over from the onions and the garlic to blend the bell peppers and the tomatoes. So you see, I did not use too much water. So that is the key. You reduce the amount of water first so that the oil stays hot. And then you use the same amount of water after the oil has heated up and the onions is cooking with the garlic. And you now blend the rest. The tomato paste does not need to be blended, so you can now add the tomato paste into the oil because we don't need to blend that. It is already in a paste form. Very important is adding a little bit of salt. You must always put a pinch of salt in everything that you cook. A pinch of salt. Not much salt, but a pinch of salt, because once you cook without salt, no matter what you do after that, it's not going to come out right. So we always need to put a pinch of salt while we cook. So, in a nutshell, that is our tomato-based sauce. So it's going to be onions, garlic, red bell peppers, tomato paste, and whole tomatoes. And the whole tomatoes could be canned tomatoes or fresh tomatoes. And I personally like the canned tomatoes because they are pre-cooked, so they don't have to cook for long. But if you use the fresh tomatoes, know that you have to cook them again for a longer period of time to eliminate the acidity that's in the fresh tomatoes. But the canned whole tomatoes are already pre-cooked, so the acidity is less than the fresh ones that you buy. And also, remember, the fresh tomatoes, you would have to de-seed, squeeze, and take the seeds out and wash them well before you chop them up and blend to add to your mixture. So that is the tomato-based sauce. So wait for it to cook, and it has to cook for minimum an hour. So you keep adding water and checking it to make sure that it is not burning and stirring it. And then when you taste it and see that everything tastes right, the acidity is gone, you let it cool, and then you package them and put them in the fridge. So we're going to wait for it to cook, and once it's cooked, we'll package them and see exactly how we put them together and pack them in the fridge. So when we start cooking, we'll be referencing the tomato-based sauce for the different dishes that we'll make. See you soon. Okay, our tomato-based sauce has cooked. It's been cooking for an hour, and I just put a 16-ounce container here with the sauce. I'll let it cool, and I'll package everything and put them in the freezer. So in our next video, we're going to use this sauce to make another dish, and you will now understand why it is important to make your bases in advance, not only because it makes your life easy, it is already done and kept and you can cook at any time, but there are other reasons that I will tell you in the next video. So this is your tomato-based sauce that you use for several other dishes that we will be cooking. Thank you, and see you in the next video.